founders, especially female founders, stop giving away so much ownership and percentage of your company for little amounts of money. And I was initially put in touch with her, but I think I was too early back then and I didn't really understand what it meant to be an angel investor and how to go about it. My overall thesis is that I only invest in female founders. Being a really kind, understanding, and empathetic investor is what female founders need at an early stage. 80% of all startups fail, 20% succeed, 10% or 5% out of those 20 will go on to be a unicorn.
Yeah.
That's why currently, after 18 months of actively angel investing, I've grown my portfolio to 5 companies. And I hope in the next 18 months, I can grow it to 10. Just raised $10 million Series A.
Oh, wow. Congrats.
Yes.
Welcome to Kasa Connect. Together we're exploring the journeys of entrepreneurs, creatives, and changemakers shaping the future.
On today's episode, you get the POV of an angel investor. I'm so pleased to have Amira Chanana on this episode. She's on a mission to accelerate growth for female founders via capital. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's connect.
Hi, Amira, and thank you for coming on Kasa Connect. It's such a pleasure to have you, and I'm so excited for this episode.
I would be lying if I said that I haven't waited for this invite for a long time. And I was so excited when my dear friend Krishana told me about her idea of Kasa Connect and the podcast. And so I'm absolutely delighted to be here today.
You've honestly been my number one cheerleader, and I'm so grateful to have you. And you are also the youngest female angel investor that I've met, and that's amazing. And I want to, before we begin on the segment, I actually just want one sentence on what an angel investor is.
Great question. Here is my definition. An angel investor is an individual investing their own capital, usually early stage, into startups. And by early stage, I mean friends and family, pre-seed, seed, up to usually Series A. And the check sizes range across the rounds. And the way it differs to a VC or someone investing from a fund is that that's a collective pool of different individuals' money, whereas an angel investor is technically a solo investor operating from their own singular pool of capital and money.
Okay, that's a great definition. So let's crack on. How did you become an angel investor?
Ooh, hitting right to the deep questions. How did I become an angel investor? I think it was kind of written in my journey and my path. Throughout my career working at different size tech companies and also coming from a kind of male-dominated family business background, I realized that I really wanted to be a part of the movement of accelerating and empowering women through access to capital, whether that be through upskilling, through education, or access to capital at early stage for entrepreneurial women. I was also exposed to angel investing at an early age through my family. I was brought on the table, asked questions, was involved in due diligence calls. And when I wanted to formalize myself as an angel investor and take that step on my own, I joined Alma Angels, one of the largest network of angel investors in the UK and Europe, investing in diverse female founders.
How did you find Alma Angels?
That's a great question. I actually Googled female angel investors specifically into femtech a few years ago.
So you were very active in like, okay, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to find a company that can support me with this journey.
Yes, and not to kind of say that, oh, I like graduated from school and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. That would be a complete lie. But when I was going through the motions of the different jobs that I had, especially around my second job when I joined Uber Eats as an account manager, I was really looking into what can I do to be a part of this movement to accelerate access to capital for early stage diverse female founders. And when I was Googling female angel investors, in the UK, very few names popped up. And I remember asking my parents to find connections to specifically Dipali Nanjia, who's a partner at Speed Invest and one of the founding partners of Alma Angels. And I was initially put in touch with her, but I think I was too early back then and I didn't really understand what it meant to be an angel investor and how to go about it. So that's why in February 2024, when I was a lot more intentional about it and I was ready to take that step, I reached out to her and joined Alma Angels. But I've been hearing about Alma Angels for the past 4 years in that female entrepreneurship ecosystem in the UK and Europe.
And it's a really amazing community. They did a breakfast here, and I was surprised to see how many men attended this breakfast? Because when you told me about Alma Angels, I thought it would just be females. So that was incredible to see kind of men also supporting just women founders.
I think you're so right. And honestly, like you said, it was a surprise. But I think the movement that we're working towards, and personally, I want to work towards that, it's not a surprise to see men support women.
Yeah.
I think that's the world that we want to move into and the world we want to build. And I also strongly believe that when women support other women, especially coming from different diverse backgrounds, we serve as blueprints and we can create systems in place where men can follow along and lead by our examples. So I think doing both is really important at the same time. Women supporting women and encouraging more men to support women.
I fully agree with that. And are you happy with all the investments you've made and all the women founders you've kind of worked with, or do you have any regrets?
Honestly, up to now, no regrets because I'm incredibly intentional with the angel investments I do. My overall thesis is that I only invest in female founders and only now from now on really like to work hands-on with female founders. So no regrets just yet, only amazing growth moments. That's not to say that I might have regrets in the future, but up to date, none so far.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. I want names. What are your top 5 companies you've invested in?
I've invested in, I'll give you just a few bunch of them, but Buy Rotation, Why Hangry, Wealth Bride, and a few others. And I highly, highly respect and I'm inspired by all the female founders running these amazing companies.
I've heard of Why Hangry. Why Hangry is that platform that has like chefs that do supper clubs, because I was actually thinking of contacting them for a collab to get like a supper club in here.
Siddhi and Heinen, the female founders of Why Hungry, are absolutely amazing. They trial and test a whole bunch of different things. And I was actually a part of the pool of one of their first 100 users back in 2020. And Supper Clubs is something that they branched out into last year. And they actually partnered with the Supper Club with a startup called Invited that I'm an active advisor for.
I know Invited as well. They're the influencers one.
Yes. And I think what
Yeah.
is a common thread between a lot of the startups that I invest in and the female founders I work with is that they all have a B2B play, because that's kind of my background where I started. I started in B2B partnerships, marketing, and content marketing at an HR tech startup in Berlin. And that's where I really got exposed to this B2B business model for startups and all the metrics attached to it, which is a really great way to scale and also break even sometimes a lot faster than just having a B2C route.
And I'm assuming working in a startup before starting to invest in a startup was valuable to you, right? Like, how was your startup experience?
You know, that's actually a really great question because there is a ongoing debate in the VC world globally about who makes the best investor. Is it someone that came from an operational background or a finance background? And I think you need a blend of both. But I do think that if, like myself, if you want to be an active investor, where I not just want to be someone that allocates my capital to founders, but I want to be actively a part of their growth journey,
Yeah.
not just of the startup, but of them as people. So be a real ally to female founders. It's important to have that operational knowledge to be able to really understand fundamentally how to support them, what their needs are, and also really understand their time constraints.
I can really tell it's a passion of yours because actually, Amira, you've always been someone who, from the start, without anything to gain, you've always given me strategic advice. You've always come in here and said, have you thought of this? You know, you should do this. You should have this collab. Let me introduce you to these people. So I think it's a passion of yours to be supporting businesses and working as not just an investor, but take on a more advisory role, right? And I was going to ask you, what are the top 3 skills you have developed in doing that?
Oh, great. Okay, let's reflect on that. The top 3 skills is number 1, given the intentional operation roles I've taken across my career. It's
Can you explain to me what you mean by intentional
Okay.
operations role?
That's great. I'm going to double down on that. Intentional meaning every career move I've taken, and I've taken quite a bunch of career moves if you look me up on LinkedIn, that I moved from one place to another with intention. It wasn't random, it wasn't unplanned, it wasn't a stroke of luck. It was hard work. It was, is this the right next step for me? Does it align with my long-term goal and my passions? And so and then operation means that working in executing roles at different stage tech companies. So it all really ties in together for me to be not just a great angel investor, but the best advisors and active investors that I can be to the next generation of female founders.
Do you feel like you're someone who puts pressure on the founders? You know, one of those investors where like, oh my God, I have a call with this person.
Actually, I really don't think I do, because I graduated from a college in the US, and I have two absolutely incredible friends. Shout out Anam Lakhani and Eve Halimi running Alinea Invest, and they navigate founder investor relationships seamlessly. And it's definitely a pure stakeholder management play. And learning from them even before I started angel investing was being a really kind, understanding, and empathetic investor is what female founders need at an early stage. And that's what kind of they prioritize. And that's why they have an amazing roster of investors, and currently just raised $10 million Series A.
Oh, wow. Congrats
Yes,
to
so that's
them.
exactly. So
Yeah.
that's why I pride myself on not being a overwhelming, intimidating. Like
Makes sense.
the other day, I told one of my founders, who's a first-time founder,
Yeah.
comes from a very different socioeconomic background, really had to work her way up. And she's taking a huge risk being a founder and putting all her eggs in her startup's basket. I was saying, don't put pressure on yourself to make a profit right away. Get your product market fit, get your sales pipeline. Just make sure your burn rate is not out of control. You have time to still raise, but show your track record, show the data you have, and that raise will be successful and you will have a path to profitability.
What do you look for in a founder? Do you go off vibes or do you actually care more about the data?
Oh, I definitely don't go off just vibes, because I'm
When I say
yeah.
vibes, I mean like more like, okay, this person has ambition, this person has drive, this person is kind of believes so hard in the product, but the data might not be aligned to that right now. Or are you more like the data, I need that to be fully kind of.
That's a great question. And angel investors, especially at early stage, we get asked that question a lot. I think that one has to be very conscious about the amount of data you ask a founder, especially seed stage or even pre-seed. I think Series A, your expectations for having a little bit more sales data or market research data can be a little bit higher. But I think that especially investing in female founders, I want to be really realistic about my ask of them. So yes, less data, but more I look at if they don't have a lot of
Yeah.
active data. But what I do like to look at is what is their business plan? What is their growth plan? And for example, if I challenge them on one of my beliefs that, oh, this might not be a right path, or I see this path not being scalable, how do they respond to that change? What I really look for is growth mindset. Do they take on feedback? See if it works for them, come back to me, follow up, like all those things. Do they have a growth mindset? And also, are they able to really articulate the problem that they're solving for and have a really great grasp of it? So not like, to me, a kind of superfluous data stat is like
Yeah.
TAM, total addressable market. Like that is something that a lot of pitch decks have like to throw in. To me, a data point like that doesn't mean much. To me, what means more is like, okay, what is your product roadmap? What are you using this round to raise for? Have you really thought about who you'll need in your team? Now in the age of AI, what AI tools are you using so that you don't have to spend that much money on hiring people? Do you have an agile mindset? So also margins of, okay, if you're going to sell a tech product for X, what are your profit margins currently? What has been your burn rate so far? So those kind of questions.
Yeah. I want to turn this into a little game. It's going to
Let's
be
do
called
it.
Deal Breaker. Okay. I'm going to list some facts about a founder and you tell me whether it's an absolute no deal breaker, wouldn't even kind of give them a second chance. So I've put down some questions. I'm going to put it
Ooh,
up.
I don't know if I'm worried or excited.
Their co-founder is their ex.
Most likely no.
It's a deal breaker. The pitch deck has typos.
Not a deal breaker.
All male founding team.
For me, deal breaker.
Enough. The entire founding team is the same nationality.
Not a huge deal breaker. Asterisks. I would like to understand why before
Okay.
I reject them
Fair enough.
or accept.
Founder is shaking and is so nervous while delivering their pitch.
Not a deal breaker. Some of the best founders grow into good orators. They don't necessarily have to be the best at public speaking. Like their product, their idea, their passion can still be there. Especially at early stage, looking at founders, sometimes it's the first time they're ever pitching. It's so okay for them to be nervous. And sometimes I like to follow up more with a one-on-one chat if they have time, or one-on-one over email where you mitigate for that kind of nervousness, because below that is where the real meat lies. So I'm not really put off by a nervous founder.
Fair enough. Okay, next one. Founder has a side job.
For now, if I'm investing early stage, deal breaker.
They're building a second startup at the same time.
So 2 startups at the same time. Deal breaker. I really think you need to go all into one.
Okay. Sends voice notes instead of emails.
Great. I'm a huge voice noter, but I will route them to email at some point.
Posts motivational quotes instead of business updates.
If you do it on your LinkedIn, I don't mind. But if we don't get an investor update, I might ask you for it.
Says we'll figure it out to every question.
Deal breaker.
Pitching while traveling the world full time. Like not for work.
Depends. If their startup allows them to do that and they're able to scale, sure. But I think 80% deal breaker.
Fair enough. And last one, already has 4 angel investors who are all their close friends.
Not a deal breaker if they bring something more to the table.
Okay. An investor-founder relationship is a two-way street. It's not always about you picking the companies to invest in, right? It's also about founders picking you. And so how have you helped a founder kind of go from slow growth, made an impact in their company? And why should people pick you as their investor?
Wow. To pitch myself. No, I'm just kidding. I'm gonna answer.
More give us a case study. I think it'll be nice to visualize how you've supported.
So one of the founders that I'm actively involved in as an investor, and we have bi-monthly calls and brainstorming calls. In the beginning, when she had initially raised, she had the product that the market was looking for, but was struggling a little bit with the messaging, branding, putting it out there, and also getting traction in her sales funnel pipeline.
How did you know she had the product the market was looking for and it's just a marketing issue?
Because I sat with her and had extensive conversations. And beyond that, she was very transparent and honest about the challenges that she was facing. Also, she came from the background, she had worked in that industry and was solving for a dire need that currently persists in that industry, and was firsthand looking for those products that she's currently selling and creating when she was much younger in that industry and starting out. So I had no doubt that she had complete knowledge about the fact that her product had product market fit, because she did have paying clients, a few, and interested. But I think she found it a little challenging in the beginning to scale and grow. And I think the 3 or 4 brainstorming sessions that we've had that last a few hours in person, sometimes virtual, she has shown exceptional growth mindset for a founder. I told her in our last meeting, which was 10 days ago, that she looks, feels, and sounds like a completely
So
different
your
founder.
role was also like a very motivational role, you'd say?
Yes,
That you play in the
always
founder's journey?
100% positive reinforcement. Never, ever, ever kicking a founder when they're down. And just general rule of life. And also really removing the emotion out of it, but creative problem solving. Like, okay, you're having this challenge. It's not an impediment, it's a challenge. What are the creative avenues that we can go down, A/B test to solve for it? So, something really simple that we did is work on the website copy to ensure that for who, for when, what, and why was blatantly clear. And she's done that exceptionally. Also, something that I lean into my B2B sales and B2B kind of growth background is SSU, self sign up for tech products. Like, how can the B2C side of a business do self sign ups and mitigate those really long sales cycles, which are not really needed in B2C, and enable that to continue her flywheel? And I think the most profound change that gap that we identified and then she worked on that's led to a profound change is that organization and structure. She realized that instead of having 1 or 2 people as generalists, she needed a few people that could go really deep down.
And so you helped her understand these things.
I-
Your role was kind of to help her sit down, kind of to pick apart and understand where the problems were.
Honestly, yes and no. She already knew what the problems were. Founders are pretty self-aware,
Yeah.
knowing what problems. I think I helped her validate it.
Okay.
Her hearing it from me, not just as an investor, but like someone that doesn't work in the business day to day, validated all these thoughts that she had, which gave her even more confidence. I'm not saying that I was like fairy godmother, bibbity bobbity boo, and something happened. No, I was there as an ally and we worked through a lot of things that helped her refine her plan. And all the execution was down to her. Full credit to her. But this is how I see my
Role.
role. And this is why I do feel like when I pitch myself to founders to be able to get on their cap tables, I really explain to them one, I want to be an active investor, I want to be an ally. If they don't, a lot of founders don't really want investors involved.
Tell us what a cap table is, because I feel like a lot of people who are listening to it could be kind of new to the founders
Of course.
community.
So cap table is your capital table. If you're a founder, whoever or whoever invests in your business, they will be on the cap table because they have equity or a share of that business. So you'll have angels, VCs, funds, etc. all sit on the cap table.
What percentage do angels investors kind of take in that cap table?
Oh, very situational, case by case basis. For example, if a startup, and also depends on the round.
Yeah.
So, for example, VCs tend to take a little bit more than angel investors. However, if you're an angel investor, a very large check, you could be competing with a check of a VC. It also depends on the valuation of the company. It depends on how many shares they're offering up in that round. It is purely case by case basis and startup by startup dependent.
I remember that in the breakfast, the Alma Angels breakfast that was hosted here, can't remember who mentioned it, but someone mentioned that to actually be making money and returns from angel investing, you have to kind of invest in more than 10. Is that your belief as well?
Yes, it's the classic 80-20 rule in the VC world that 80% of all startups fail, 20% succeed, maybe 10% or 5% out of those 20 will go on to be a unicorn.
Yeah.
That's why currently, after 18 months of actively angel investing, I've grown my portfolio to 5 companies. And I hope in the next 18 months, I can grow it to 10 and so on and so forth. Because at the end of the day, you are playing a statistics game. This is what also kind of why early stage VC firms invest quite in a whole large number, because you have to balance. It's one of those areas where it's not all quality. You have to balance quantity with quality.
So is your expectations on what it meant to be an angel investor match the reality of it?
It's exceeded my expectations because, especially through Alma Angels, the network, the kind of founders that I've been exposed to, inspiring the fact that I've been able to grow my my portfolio to 5 diverse, inspiring female founders, the fact that I have access to deal flow. I think what really blew my mind is the amount of access I have to deal flow. And the other thing, like I felt really insecure about how young I was and the lack of experience that I had compared to other more senior, successful angel investors in the network or just out there in general. And I really feel like if you bring value to the table, of course, money, value, strategic value, and you're empathetic, it really doesn't matter how old you are. And founders going to connect with you regardless, and they're going to see that you're an asset to their cap table. And I think one thing is important to know that, talking about just myself, I'm not going to be an asset to every founder and every cap table as much as I'd like to
I was
think.
going to ask you something, like, do you focus on an industry to make yourself an expert and to stand out, or how do you operate? Do you have specific sectors you look at and don't look at?
I am industry agnostic. I definitely tend to venture a little bit away from industries that are more highly niche in terms of like the knowledge that you need. But I think I've through the angel investing journey and being actively involved with founders, I think one exercise that early angel investors can do is really realize what parts of their career journey and advice that they give founders really resonates with founders. So I realized it was strategy sessions, brainstorming sessions, particularly around different revenue channels, specifically business to business revenue channels, and also business to business marketing. So the advising role I do at Invited, how I work with like Carla at Wealthbright.
Tell us a
And
little bit more about Invited, just so like.
of course,
everyone
Invited
knows.
is a B2B platform that connects for example, influencers with hospitality and F&B brands to make content marketing and influencer marketing seamless and affordable.
So, and you're not an investor, you are an advisor.
Yes.
So how did you get this advisory role, and why did you choose to be an advisor on this? And, how often do you meet? How does it work?
So I meet with Asti and her team. So Asti Wagner is the founder of Invited. Shout out Asti and her team. Love Invited. They just gave me some merch. I love
We love
merch.
that. Another benefit, obviously, of being an angel
Yes,
investor.
merch. I love wearing the startups
Please.
I invested and advise on my chest, metaphorically and literally. So I let founders and their team set cadence because I don't want to put that additional pressure on them. So with Asti and her team, we meet about every 6 to 8 weeks. We have a working Google Doc where I will upload a lot of things. And then in between those meetings, I send Asti a lot of WhatsApp messages. I'm on a group chat with her team and emails if I need to connect her with someone or see something coming up or an article or anything like that. And then the work I do with them is more on creative problem solving.
Yeah.
So in our sessions with their entire team, they will come up to me with like, hey, we're running into these challenges lately, or this is something that we want to brainstorm with you. And then I help them kind of come up with different A/B testing options that they can do. And then they go back and discuss as a team, like what's a viable option for them. All I do is give suggestions, help brainstorm with them. I have no expectations that they're going to follow everything I say down to a T. And I think that's also consciously, I'm not trying to put that pressure on them
Yeah.
like a school teacher, It's not didactic. It's more like a symbiotic relationship.
What do you say to people who kind of say like, oh, you're only where you are because of that privilege? And how do you kind of earn respect?
Wow. Solid question. Because I'm not going to repeat the phrase, good question. Yeah, whatever you said is true. I come from privilege. And honestly, throughout the years, maturing, growing up, I don't look at it as something that I have to get defensive about. I have to be really, pardon my French, effing grateful. And that is why it is my passion and my mission to invest in female founders, especially those from different socioeconomic backgrounds to myself, because I feel like that is one of the ways not to like give back or like kind of treat some kind of like guilt that I have.
Yeah.
I have no guilt, but this is the movement that I want to be a part of for a multitude of reasons. And this is one of the reasons.
No, I get that. But how do you convince people that you're hungry? Sometimes when you come from privilege, people think, oh, they're lazy, they have it easy. Like they don't need to be kind of ambitious and hungry for more.
Good point, but I have switched my mindset where I don't need to prove anything to anyone.
I like that.
I have to prove it to myself because at the end of the day, there are voices in your head that are like, oh, you come from privilege, like you have a comfortable life, you can angel invest at a young age because you also have come from those backgrounds. But I really intentionally think about my steps, where I'm putting my capital, where I'm putting my time, who am I investing it with when it comes to the work environment, who am I surrounding myself with, and really, really doubling down on my growth mindset.
Yeah.
Always staying hungry and having, really big goals, really big dreams, aspirations, and never taking anything for granted.
I like that about you. You've always shown gratitude, and you use your privilege to make the world a better place. And I think that not everyone actually does that. So I think you are using it very well. But what do you say to the people who aren't privileged but want to be angel investors? Yes or no? Is it too risky?
It's definitely too risky, but I would never say no. I would say case by case basis, be strategic. I think the biggest thing I've learned in this whole journey is that as women, we need to get even more savvy about how we build wealth, accumulate wealth, and then give out wealth. So, for example, if you come from a background where you do not have access to disposable income and you also don't have those around you, as aspirational or angel investors, first start by saving, investing in public stocks, using your ISA if you're in the UK. And then when you've accumulated enough over a couple of years, testing out angel investments with small checks. I understand that the return on investment on small checks is very different if you're an angel investor that can invest with really big checks. But you have to start somewhere because it is a learning journey, it is a growth journey. And I think in this day and age with people moving and having multiple careers in their lifetime and also retiring at like much further along in their lives, you have your whole life to put in that really high on check. You don't have to do everything now, but have those goals and aspirations and those signposts. And as you get older and as you accumulate wealth, keep checking in on your risk profile. And this is one thing I always tell people. You should always make sure you know where like you have a roof over your head, you have food on the table, because without any of that, you won't be able to do and meet your goal.
So, Amira, what do you think most founders get wrong?
At early stage, founders, especially female founders, stop giving away so much ownership and percentage of your company for little amounts of money. I get it.
You're not saying this advice in your benefit, but I like it.
No, I fully agree. I'm female founder first, angel investor like mindset second. I get it. You need the money to take off. Not everyone has the luxury of 100% owning their startup till the end. But especially women, don't forget that is your main wealth asset. That is your asset. We have seen time and time again founders reduce to barely under 10% by the time they sometimes hit Series B, Series C round. And then not only are you at a huge risk of losing control of your company, but if you get bought out for a measly amount, you don't really get that full return on your investment of 10, 12 years you've put into it, all the hard work, the sacrifices. And especially women, we're biologically trained to undersell ourselves. And don't even get me started about that. So,
I agree. I'm still practicing.
Yes,
that. Yeah.
women, there are alternative ways to raise equity-free money, albeit they are harder. It's not easy. But if you can find those avenues like grants, not just government ones, through universities, if someone that does have access to friends and family round, if you have someone that can crowdfund, try all avenues before you start giving away ownership of your company, please.
Makes sense. That's great advice. And what's one myth about angel investing that you'd like to bust?
You don't need to be a billionaire to invest early stage. I repeat, you don't need to be a billionaire to invest early stage. Billionaires become billionaires by angel investing.
So how little can I invest? Say tomorrow I want to, get involved, which I kind of do after speaking to you. But how?
Job done.
No, how little can I invest?
Honestly, the smallest check size I've written is 2.5K. And any upwards of that. To be honest, if you speak to someone who's more mathematical, works in the finance industry, they would say, oh, that won't make a big difference to you. But if you're someone that doesn't have access to large pools of disposable income, but is really, really interested in supporting, especially female founders and early stage founders, your 2.5K can go a long way. And that's a great starting point, a great entry point. Angel investing is becoming so much more accessible. And more people across different socioeconomic ladders can come in. So starting at something small as 2.5K, totally possible.
I didn't actually realize how much personal development and career development one would have from being an angel investor. It's not just about the money, which is after speaking to you, I've kind of really learned. You get to expand your network. You get to meet lots of people doing really cool things. And honestly, it sounds like a great avenue that you've taken, and I love it.
Thank you. And honestly, it's been such a pleasure to talk about angel investments, early stage female founders with you at Kasa Connect, because I really believe platforms like Kasa Connect help us disseminate the word of supporting early stage founders, whether that be female, male, from diverse backgrounds, because I do believe we all have to support each other, and having a network like Kasa Connect, amplifying this voice, bringing founders together, especially in a beautiful place like Kasa Cafe. I mean, what more can the ecosystem ask for?
Thank
a
you.
lot, but you know what I mean.
So I'm actually going to close off with our last 3 questions. So like you said, what's unique about this podcast is that it's being filmed in a cafe. So what's your go-to drink on a coffee break?
Americano, no milk, no sugar.
Yeah, I know that about you. And this podcast is all about connection. How can our audience connect with you? What's the best way? And what are you looking for in the kind of audience listeners?
Anyone that has questions about angel investing, particularly early stage and female founders, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I think it's Amira C on LinkedIn. Reference that you heard on Kasa Connect. So I know in the messages I will respond to you immediately. Always happy to chat and dispel any myths that you have on angel investing, whether it's the right time for you now or maybe the right time later. Please use me as a knowledge base and a resource.
And I want to leave everyone with some food for thought. So, what's the best piece of advice that you regret not taking?
Oh, remove, don't be scared to advocate for yourself, regardless of whether it is for someone senior at a company or if it's someone junior to you. Advocate in an empathetic way, but don't be scared of speaking your mind. And especially if you're feeling like you've been done wrong or injustice, even if it means you're risking either your job or a relationship, do that because it's authentic to what you're feeling in the moment and you'll regret not advocating for yourself.
I like that. Thank you.